You have brought a plant home from the store, a good, healthy green thing, and set it on the windowsill where you could see it, and watered it faithful, and for a while it did fine. And then something turned. The leaves went a little yellow, first the low ones, then more. It stopped putting out anything new. It just sat there, sulking, no worse exactly, but no better, week after week. And so you did what a caring person does. You watered it more, you gave it more attention, more water, because it looked thirsty and sad, and it got worse. And maybe one day you tipped it out of the pot to have a look, and the roots that should have been white and firm and reaching were brown and soft and smelled sour, and your heart sank, because you thought you had loved that plant to health, and instead you had loved it near to death. And you started to believe what so many folks believe, that you just do not have the touch, that some people can grow things, and you are not one of them. I want to stop you right there, because you are about to give up on the best and cheapest joy a windowsill ever gave a person, for want of a thing nobody ever taught you, a thing that costs about $1 and sits in medicine cabinets in near every house in this country. I am Elias. My family came over from the Palatinate in 1838, and we have farmed and kept a greenhouse and a garden on this same Lancaster County ground ever since. And I will tell you, growing things is the oldest knowledge my family carries, older than any recipe or any pan. My grandmother could root a cutting from a neighbor's plant in a jar on the sill and have a whole new plant of it by spring, and she never bought a bottle of anything blue or fancy to do it. Esther keeps our windows full of green the same way now, and half of what grows in this house came free from a snip off somebody else's plant. And the small thing I want to show you today is the one that saved more of my houseplants than any other single thing I know, and it costs almost nothing, and it is likely sitting in your bathroom cupboard this very minute. But before I show you the how, I must show you the why, because if you do not understand the why of this one, you will misuse it, and you will either do nothing or do harm, and you will blame the method. So, let me give you the one thing that near everybody has completely backward about a houseplant, because once you see it, you will grow different from this day on. You think roots need water, and of course they do. But that is not the whole of it, and the half you are missing is the very thing killing your plants. I will tell you plainly, roots need to breathe. Roots need air, every bit as much as they need water. Down there in the dark of the pot, a living root is drawing in air through the little spaces between the crumbs of soil, and it must have that air to live and to grow and to drink. Now think on what you do when a plant looks poorly and you pour more water into it. You fill up every one of those little air spaces with water. You drown it. The soil sits soggy and packed and airless, and the roots cannot breathe, and they begin to suffocate and rot, and in that wet, airless dark the bad things thrive. The rot and the sour mold that finish the job. So the plant looks thirsty, and you water it, and the watering is the very thing killing it, and it looks thirstier still, and you water it more. That is the trap, and it is backward from everything your kindness tells you. A great many more houseplants are killed by too much love and too much water than were ever killed by too little. The plant is not begging for water. It is begging for air. And once you understand that, you understand the whole of what I am about to tell you. Quick word before I go further. The old methods my family uses, there is more of it than fits in any one video. I gathered the whole of it into a book at eliasyoder.com. The book is the long version. If you want it, it is there. I will not mention it again. Now, the thing itself. It is plain hydrogen peroxide. The ordinary kind, the 3% kind in the brown bottle that you buy for $1 to clean a scrape on a child's knee. And I have to be honest with you right at the start, the way I would want a man to be honest with me. This is not a magic potion. It will not make a plant explode with roots overnight the way some folks would have you believe, and any man who promises you a miracle by the calendar is selling you something. What it does is real and plain and useful, and I will tell you exactly what it is, because the truth of it is better than the fairy tale anyhow. What hydrogen peroxide is, at the bottom of it, is water with one extra bit of oxygen bound onto it, and that extra bit of oxygen is loosely held and comes free easily. That is the whole secret of why it does what it does, and it does two good things for a struggling plant. The first is that it gives that airless drowning soil a breath of oxygen. When you put a little diluted peroxide into soggy soil, that extra oxygen breaks loose and gets down to the suffocating roots and gives them the very air they were starving for. It is, in a small way, like opening a window in a stuffy room. The second thing is that in fizzing loose, it works against the rot and the sour bad growth that took hold in the wet, cleaning up the very trouble that the overwatering caused. So it does not force a plant to do anything unnatural. It simply removes the thing that was strangling it and lets the plant do what a plant naturally wants to do, which is grow. When a root can breathe again and the rot is checked, the plant recovers, and yes, a recovering plant puts out new white roots, healthy and reaching. Not because you whipped it into it, but because you took your boot off its throat. That is the honest truth of it, and it is plenty good enough. So here is how you use it, and there is a right way, and the wrong way will burn your plant, so hear me close, because this is where care matters most. The one rule above all others is this: you must dilute it, and dilute it well. Straight peroxide from the bottle poured on a root is far too strong, and it will burn and harm the very roots you are trying to save. This is a thing where more is not better, more is ruin. The old measure my family uses is about 1 tablespoon of the ordinary 3% peroxide to about a cup of water, roughly, or a scant teaspoon to a small glass. Weak. You want it weak. When in doubt, weaker still, because a weak dose helps and a strong dose harms, and there is no prize for being bold with it. Mix it fresh in your watering can or jug and stir it into the water, and that is your treatment. Now, when do you use it? And here is where the understanding pays off. You use it when the soil is too wet and the plant is suffering for it, not on a happy plant in dry soil. If your plant is yellowing and the soil is soggy and sour, you first let it drain. Pour off any water standing in the saucer beneath, because a plant should never sit in a puddle. That alone drowns more plants than anything. Then, in place of your next plain watering, you give it that weak peroxide water instead, poured into the soil the way you always water, down at the soil, not splashed on the leaves. The oxygen gets down to the roots, and the rot gets checked. And here is the part the impatient person gets wrong, thinking if a little is good, they will do it every single day and drown the plant in peroxide water. Do not. This is a medicine, not a daily drink. You give it that treatment, then you let the soil begin to dry out properly before you water again at all, plain water or otherwise, because the drying out is half the cure, letting air back into those spaces on its own. Once every week or two while the plant is recovering is plenty. Once it is well and growing again, you may put it out of your mind and just water it right, which mostly means less than you think, and only when the top of the soil has gone dry to your finger. And for a cutting, this is where my grandmother's jar comes in. The same weak mix helps there too. When you are rooting a snip of a plant in a glass of water on the windowsill, the water goes stale and low on air after some days, and that is why cuttings so often rot in the glass before they ever root. A few drops of peroxide in the rooting water, and changed fresh every few days, keeps that water sweeter and better aired, and a cutting sitting in sweet-aired water is far likelier to push out roots than one sitting in stale. Again, weak, just a few drops in the glass, not a strong dose. That is the honest use of it for rooting, and it is a real help, though I will not tell you it works magic there either, for patience and fresh water and good light do most of the work, and always did. Now the warnings, plain and caring, because I would not send you off without them. The first I have said and will say again because it matters most: weak, always weak, for strong peroxide burns roots, and the whole point is to save them. The second is to keep the bottle up away from children, For the ordinary kind is mild, but no child should be drinking it or getting it in their eyes. So treat it with the plain sense you would any bottle from the medicine cupboard. The third is the one about impatience. Do not give it day after day thinking to hurry the plant, for the drying and the breathing back of air is half the healing, and it takes the time it takes. And the fourth, and hear this one. This is a help for a plant suffering from wet and rot and airless soil. It is not a cure for every trouble a plant can have. If your plant is failing from too little light, or from a pest, or from bad dry care, peroxide will not fix that, and no honest man would tell you it would. Learn to look at your plant and read what it is truly telling you, and use the right answer for the right trouble. Now let me tell you who profits from your never knowing that a dollar bottle from your own bathroom would have saved that plant. Not to rile you up just so you see the shape of the thing, because once you see it, you cannot unsee it. There is no money, none at all, in a bottle of peroxide you already own, and in the plain knowledge that most houseplants die from too much water and too little air. That knowledge is free, and it costs the seller of things a great deal. But there is a fine business in a shelf full of bottles at the nursery, the rooting powders and the root boosters and the special tonics with a picture of a great bursting plant on the label, sold to you for many dollars, season after season, to fix a problem that plain understanding and a dollar bottle would fix better. And there is a finer business still, and this is the quiet, cruel part of it, in simply selling you another plant when this one dies. For the plant that dies on your sill is a plant you will come back and buy again, and if you come to believe you just do not have the touch, why, you will keep coming back and buying forever, each time a little more sure the fault is in you and not in the plain thing nobody bothered to teach you. I am not telling you a man sat in a back room and schemed this against you. No one had to. It is worse than a conspiracy, because it is a system nobody had to coordinate at all. It simply pays far better to sell a man a boosting potion and then a replacement plant than to teach him for free that his plant is drowning, and he need only let it breathe. The understanding gets given once and lasts a life. The bottle and the replacement get sold again and again. And so it is the bottle that gets the fine label and the shelf at eye level, and the understanding that gets left out entirely. So let me give you the whole of it back, clean and plain, so it stays with you. Understand first that roots must breathe as surely as they must drink, and that far more houseplants are drowned by too much water and airless soggy soil than ever died of thirst. So when a plant is yellowing in wet, sour soil, you stop drowning it, you pour off any standing water, and in place of the next watering you give it a weak mix, about a tablespoon of the ordinary 3% peroxide to a cup of water, poured down at the soil, which carries a breath of oxygen to the suffocating roots and checks the rot. Then you let the soil dry properly before watering again, for the drying is half the cure. You do this once a week or two while it recovers, never daily, never strong, and you keep the bottle from the children. And for a cutting in a jar, a few drops in the water, changed fresh, keeps it aired and sweet, so it roots instead of rotting. That is the whole of it, and it is the plain truth, no magic in it, only understanding, which is worth more than magic ever was. Now I want to hear from you, and I ask you honest, because I learn the whole country from these comments, and that is no flattery. It is the plain truth. Tell me below, what is the one plant you could never keep alive? The one that always turned yellow and gave up on you no matter what you did? And tell me your county and what your winters are like, because a plant on a windowsill in a long, dark, northern winter fights a different battle than one in the bright south. And I like to know where folks are growing. And tell me this too, who first put a plant in your care? Was it a mother, a grandmother, somebody who could grow anything and made it look easy? Because I would wager a good many of you were handed a green thing to keep once and never told the plain secret of it, and I would dearly love to hear whose windowsill you learned on. I read every single one of these. There is nothing I like better of an evening than reading whose grandmother rooted her whole garden from cuttings and jam jars on the sill. This is a rare little corner of things. Folks gathered together, keeping the old growing knowledge from being lost. And if what I told you today does you any good at all,